We're going to begin. Give everybody time to roll over and get out of bed. I'm going to go ahead and get started so we can have a rich discussion. So, good to see so many faces this morning and excited to have a guest speaker joining us today, one of my colleagues from Erie Family Health Centers. My students can probably tell you a number of things about Erie because it comes up every day as we're talking about nonprofit marketing and fundraising. So, the whole point of the virtual guest lecture series is to really give the students practical applications of what this work actually looks like instead of the theoretical side of it and the assignments. And so we've got some great speakers that have given us some real nuggets on how they got there, what do they do every day. And my class knows that I'm an advocate for nonprofit work. I tell them there's money in the nonprofit space. The only nonprofits that don't have money are nonprofits that don't have money. So there are tons out there. We need good people in this sector. So I'm excited to turn it over to Carly. I've worked with Carly. How long have you been at Erie, Carly?
About 3 years.
3 years. So half of my time that I've been at Erie, and I feel like we've done some pretty great work together. And um, her team has raised a lot of money and raised a lot of visibility for Erie, and so my team gets to support that. So I will shut up and turn it over to Carly. And as always, if you all have questions, please unmute and ask. It's not just a TED talk or anything like that, but we want to make sure that it's an engaging discussion for you all as well.
Yeah, and I would prefer that because a TED Talk is my nightmare. So I would love people to chat and ask questions. Hey y'all, I'm Carly Faison. Like Kevin said, I work with Erie on our fundraising team. So my official title, I just got promoted, so it's longer and more cumbersome, but I am the senior manager of annual giving and donor communications. And I have been told that you all have been very immersed in the fundraising world over the last 11, 12 weeks. And you probably know a lot about the concepts I'm going to talk about today. And I know it's early morning and everyone's waking up, but I would love to meet everyone, even if you don't want to put your camera on, but just share your name and can you also share one way that you've interacted with individual giving? So I think you all know what that concept is like individuals donating to organizations. So if you've given to an organization or if you fundraise for an organization, I'd love to hear about that experience. If someone wants to start, maybe one of the camera on people can be brave and start.
I could even go.
Awesome.
My camera's not working today. I'm sorry.
No worries.
But so I'm Emma Shaver. I'm a senior and a nonprofit management major. And I grew up in a family that everybody is involved in social work pretty much. And so my aunt and grandmother are both fundraisers for different universities over the years.
Cool. Cool.
And my aunt right now is working as the head of the fundraising department at the Evanston Public Library. And
cool.
so I've kind of grown up around all of this. My mom is the ED of a housing organization, and yeah.
Wow. Okay, cool. So you have lots of firsthand experience hearing about from your mom and aunt about their careers. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing.
My name is Abby.
Hi,
Hi. I am a senior also, and I'm studying business and nonprofit management. I do give on like a monthly basis to Food for the
Cool.
Hungry.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's like really the only giving I've done super intentionally, but yeah.
And what motivated you to give monthly? I love monthly donors. I'm just curious, like what grabbed you? Was it
Yeah, good question. Well, I mean, that's kind of like so I was at like a concert and like I don't know if you've ever been to like concerts where they will like come around and be like they'll give like a speech about like, oh, this is what the organization is and like this is why you should give. So I kind of heard that and I was like, oh, that sounds cool. And it's like I don't know, like $30 a month. So I was like, okay, like that's not, too bad. That's like reasonable for what I can do.
Yeah.
But it's like that's like kind of the plan where it's like if you sign up for it, like you sign up for a monthly thing because it's kind
Set
of
it
like
and forget
sponsoring a
it.
kid.
That's what they call
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of how I got into it.
Nice. That's great. Thanks for sharing.
I can go ahead. I'm Maddie, also a senior, majoring in nonprofit management and public policy. Um, and most of my giving experience has been like one-time gifts. Um,
Mhm.
I don't know if I've ever given monthly to an organization. Um, and then I've done a bit of like fundraising personally. Um, and I was a intern in a development office,
Okay.
and did some fundraising work there. Um, but
Very
yeah.
cool. That's awesome. Thank you. I don't know what this note taker is. That's not a person, right? So the
Oh, so that is because I sliced nerves and ligaments in my hand and can't type or write.
Oh my
So
gosh.
I'm sorry, I should have asked if it was okay with you.
Oh no,
Um,
that's fine. I just was calling on people and I'm like, okay, I think that is a
oh no,
non-human
that one
entity,
won't
so I will
respond to
not
you.
call on it.
No, yeah, okay.
Um, okay, Jadisha? Jadisha? Share? Maybe still getting ready, getting coffee. I think I saw someone just join. We were going around or I'm Carly, I'm the guest lecturer, but I was just curious to hear about everyone in the class's name and their experience with individual giving, whether you've given or you fundraised before at all. So if you'd be willing to share, Quadrell, maybe not. Okay, that's
Yeah, I'll
oh,
share.
oh hey.
You said giving.
Yeah, I was curious if so I work in individual giving and I was curious if you've ever donated to an organization or a cause. It doesn't have to be a nonprofit, but or mutual aid counts, etc. or done any fundraising or asked your friends, asked your networks, anything like that.
Yeah. I was in this program, and I guess they was like sending like food to like back to Africa. This was like when I was like young.
Okay.
So yeah, when I was young, we was like selling food and like seeds. Selling up water, milk, vegetables, and we sent it like back to Africa and like places that really needed it.
Okay. And how'd you get involved? Was it through school or did you family? How'd you find out about this opportunity to volunteer?
It was a church.
Oh, church. Okay. Church is big, the biggest philanthropy sources. Um, Thanks for sharing and thanks for joining. Okay, well, it seems like you all have actually quite a bit of knowledge, so hopefully what I shared today is meaningful and will add to your repertoire of understanding of individual giving. And in when I was in college, I always wanted concrete examples. I love theory, but I was like, what does that really mean? Like, what do you really do on your day to day? So I'm going to provide a lot more very specific examples of how I build annual giving campaigns at Erie. And I made it a bit high level. I could go into depth and talk for a long time about most of these topics. So if you have any questions or feel particularly interested in anything that related to what I'm saying, please feel free to unmute and ask a question. I do have some slides prepared, so I'm going to share my screen. Uh, If I have the capability, let me confirm that. Share.
Should have abilities. Hang on, let me see.
I think I do. Present. I love that you can click the present in Teams button on PowerPoint now, and it's just all integrated. Okay, I'm not going to lie. Kevin did come up with the snazzy title for me, so thank you to Kevin for that. The Erie Effect, Effective Annual Giving Campaigns and Communications. So I'm going to be talking specifically my work at Erie. But first I want to give a little bit of background about my career, who I am, what I've done. I've pretty much been in individual giving for my entire career. I went to undergrad at DePaul for history, and I really thought I was going to do something related to public history, like archives or in the museum. So I got an MA in History Museum Studies. Um, and then while I was there, I took courses on admin, development, fundraising. But I'm here to say, if you want to be in fundraising, you don't need a master's, you just need experience. So that's my subtle pitch for that. No need to pay extra money if you don't want to, and you don't need to. So when I left grad school, I started my career at the Chesapeake Bay Maritime Museum. I worked in fundraising and membership there. And then I moved along to the Shriver Center on Poverty Law, which was a policy advocacy nonprofit. Again, did individual giving, managed the annual fund campaigns. We did not have membership there. And then from there, I've moved to Erie Family Health Centers, which I am at now. Healthcare, direct services. So I've worked at three different nonprofits in different sectors of the industry. But the skills move over. So when you do fundraising, as long as you have your basis of fundraising skills, you can fundraise for any nonprofit you want. And the bonus is that it's kind of fun and you get to learn about different things. I know so much about boats. I would never know about boats, but working at a maritime museum, that happens. And then I learned a lot about policy, and now I know a lot about healthcare. So I'm becoming a more well-rounded individual. But I just want to highlight some skills that I learned throughout my careers. And these are kind of buzzwords that you can use in resumes if you're ever applying, but and you want to kind of build out your fundraising experience. I've managed donor databases, which is a big part of fundraising, is having the data to back up your strategies. Executing annual fund and membership campaigns, creating impactful written donor communications, managing volunteers. That's huge in the nonprofit space, especially for fundraisers. You work with a lot of volunteers. Planning solicitation, cultivation, and stewardship events. And then making donors of all giving levels feel appreciated. That's the most fun part to me. Anybody have any questions? I'll just ask for questions occasionally, and if you don't have any, it's fine, but all right.
Can you tell me a little bit more about Shriver as like just like an overall organization and what they do?
Sure. So their mission is to eliminate poverty via policy advocacy, which is obviously a huge vision. But they have four different ways that they go about that. They have a healthcare justice team, which kind of got me to Erie. So they work everyone works mostly at the state level, doing state advocacy. So there's a healthcare justice team working on increasing healthcare access. For example, they worked on the policy that increased Medicaid coverage for undocumented immigrants. That happened during the COVID pandemic. That's still ongoing, but like during the earlier years. And then they also work on economic justice, which are very relevant to things in it right now, like related to increasing SNAP access, other types of benefits. One of my colleagues worked on the Salary Transparency Act that's now open in Illinois, where employers have to share, or employers cannot ask you what your previous salary was, because that creates inequity, because if you were underpaid, you're going to continue to be underpaid. And then Wow, there are two more things, and I'm blanking out on them, but you can check out their website. They're pretty interesting. Advocacy is an interesting space. There's lots of good organizations around Chicago area specifically that work on Illinois policy advocacy. So if you're interested in that, I can happy to talk with you about that offline. But yeah,
Thank you.
no worries. Anybody else? Okay, I'll move on. So like I mentioned today, I'm going to talk about my experience at Erie. And on the individual giving team, let me see. Okay, this is my team. We're a small but mighty individual giving team. Actually, Erie has a robust development team. We have the four of us in individual giving, and then about 6 grants staff. And the individual giving team in specific is uh motivated to raise $2 million annually from individual and event donations. So I thought I would just share what each of us does so that you have a understanding of some different positions that are available in the fundraising individual giving field. My supervisor on the left, she's the head of our individual giving team. She's the director of individual giving and events, and she oversees all of us, and she's very involved in planning our signature fundraising event, which is kind of more of like a cocktail situation. It's not a stuffy gala. And then she does a lot more one-on-one fundraising and solicitations, building up our relationships. And she's also a real wizard of annual campaigns. I inherited a lot of her like incredible structured campaigns. So she's great. That's me. And I am seconded, and I am in charge of annual giving and donor communications. So I manage our year-end campaign, Giving Tuesday, bigger campaigns that involve, direct mail, social media, different marketing channels. I coordinate personalized or solicitations for I don't necessarily do one-on-one solicitations, but I help prepare my VP and Kathy and our president with materials for one-on-one solicitations. I run some smaller patient resources centered giving campaigns throughout the year, and manage our donor stewardship. So if a donation comes in, we have to make sure that it's thanked appropriately. I think the industry standard is within 48 hours, but I try to do it immediately. And that makes a huge difference. People notice and they comment on how quickly and nicely we thank them, which leads to increased giving. And I also create different materials that are mailed out or sent out or emailed, updating people on the impact of our work. And I'll share a little bit more about what that actually means in my next slides. Emerson, our development coordinator, they're just starting in their career. They're about a year into the fundraising field, so they're really getting their feet wet with all these different activities. So as a coordinator, they're supporting on an admin level, events, annual giving, but also I think with a lot of fundraising departments, when you start out, you start out in kind of these coordinator roles, but you can really have the opportunity to build out your skills and start taking over and being the owner of more events. And they're doing really well with managing our associate board, which is our board of young professionals age 25 to 40. So they're getting a lot of good hands-on experience while learning on the job. And then my last colleague, Angela, leadership giving manager, she is focused on building relationships and soliciting donors who give between the probably $1,000, $10,000 level, and identifying prospects, prospects who are new to our organization, or donors who traditionally give like 250, 500, people that might have a capacity for more, but it's just a matter of, you know, building that relationship, aka inviting them on site, talking to them on the phone, trying to learn what their interests are and values are, and getting them more invested in our mission. So we have quite a well-rounded team. We work really closely with internal and external stakeholders. Internal being the president and CEO. In fundraising, you work really closely with the head of organizations, because they're kind of the face of your organization in a major fundraiser. Our VP of development, she's fabulous at soliciting individual gifts. So she's a huge part of our team. And then the marketing team, of course, Kevin and his team are really essential in thinking through strategy and actually creating deliverables in terms of materials that we can share out with donors, pitch decks, strategic plan brochures, everything. They're incredible. And then a lot of staff, donors, fundraisers, and storytellers. At Erie, we are very blessed to have a huge staff that's really passionate about the mission. I think we have like 700 full-time staff, right, Kevin? And so many people want to give back to Erie, even though they're giving every day through their time and by working on the job. So we work a lot with them. Externally, we work very closely with Erie's boards. We have 3 boards: a governing board, foundation board, which raises money, and an associate board, the young professionals, individual donors, corporate supporters, and event attendees. That's a big segment of our individual giving. So anybody got any? That was a lot. I'm sorry that I talked so much, but anybody got any questions related to like structures of fundraising teams? What are jobs like what are positions? Okay. One person that I forgot also is our database manager. She's absolutely essential to our operations. I should have put her down, and don't tell her that I didn't do that, because we always need our data of who's donated in the past and what they've donated. Okay, I'm gonna move on. So when my team is
I'm sorry to
oh, go
interrupt.
for it. Yeah.
About how big is your fundraising team?
Yeah,
Like,
so
yeah.
10 total. 4 of us are individual giving and about 6 grants. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
We don't work as closely with the grants because they're kind of doing their own thing, but you know, they're I assume you guys have kind of covered grants. It's a bit of a different process. It's a lot of writing and working with the government in
Very
Erie's case.
only on the a very introductory level because of
Oh.
that. It's so deep, but we've talked about that as a possible funding stream, but we haven't gone into detail.
I will say Erie has a very large budget, the largest budget of any organization I've worked at. I think we're like 100 million, right, Kevin? $100 million or something like that.
Our
And
130.
okay, 130. And as you can tell, 2 million is a small slice. We are building out our individual giving program. Our grants team is responsible for what, I think like 30 million. So they are bringing in quite a bit more than us. The one thing about grants is, or whatever they always say in the fundraising field, you need to build up your individual giving, because grants are very uncertain. Like if you don't get a grant renewed and it's $10 million, then you're out $10 million in your budget, and then you're kind of trying to fill in those gaps. So individual giving is a little bit more stable in the sense that if you lose a gift as in someone decides not to renew, they don't support again, it's a little bit easier to weather that and find new funding for support. So there's a huge push in the nonprofit world to like build up your individual giving team, build it up. At Erie, because we are a federally qualified health center, there's a lot of high level grant support that's available, and then funding related to payouts via insurance, etc. But as we know from the current moment with people being unable to, people's insurance is being threatened, funding to federally qualified health centers is being threatened. We're not sure what the future holds related to like federal funding for our specific sector. So that's why individual giving is important. It's not going to fill all the gaps, but it can be helpful. Also in I apologize if you all already know this and I'm being very redundant, but individual giving also is mostly unrestricted support, which means the donations come with no strings attached, which is the best kind of money you can ever get in the nonprofit world. Because sometimes like you just need a little bit of flexibility with your funds, and if you have unrestricted support, it's way easier to kind of sustain yourself and also prepare for any sort of issues that may arise that you might need money for. But with grants, a lot of money is earmarked to specific programs. So that's why individual unrestricted giving is important too. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
How many events do you usually have every year? And like two kind of questions with that. Who usually like kind of runs it? Is it your team? Is it like one person kind of like doing most of it? And then also like what are the events?
Yeah. We, as an individual giving team, we have a major fundraiser that happens every spring. It's called Iridescence. I have a slide on it later, so you'll see some photos. That's our major individual fundraiser. We raise about $300,000 to $350,000 a year, and it has maybe around 300 people in attendance. And then we have found we're moving directions a little bit with our strategy, and we found that hosting a series of smaller fundraisers and smaller house parties has been more impactful for giving. So for example, if a board member wants to host a gathering at their house to introduce their networks to Erie, like we'll have Erie people, let's say our president, Dr. Francis, our VP of development will be there, and maybe a programmatic person, maybe it's a provider or another staff member or a patient board member who can speak directly to the care they're receiving at Erie, will come and speak, and then it's just that opportunity to introduce people to our mission and get them excited. So we're finding that converts more loyal donors than maybe our yearly event. Our yearly big fundraiser is amazing, but people really give only within the context of the event. And all the question is always, how do we get event donors to get more engaged outside of just that event time? And how do they become loyal donors even if they don't attend an event? Like say they can't attend or they're sick or something. Are they still going to give to us? Like we're really working through, these are some things that we work through. But anyway, long story short to that answer is big event and then smaller events throughout the year. Sometimes we do happy hours too, or trying to get people involved. And then a big initiative we're trying to do is get people in the health centers for tours. So we invite people to come take a tour so they can see directly the work we do. And then that really energizes people to feel connected to our mission and our work. So Yeah. It's fun, but and then your other question was who does it? Majority, Kathy and Emerson are leading the events with support from me and Angela. Any other questions? All right, I'm going to move on. Thank you for the good questions. So speaking of questions, I wrote down some guiding questions that my team uses. We do a lot of work planning at the beginning of our fiscal year to think about what was successful about our last year's fundraising campaigns. What are our goals? Who do we want to target? And how can we do that? So here are some three overarching questions that we have. What are our measurable fundraising goals? Who are our donors? And how do we tell Erie's story to inspire people to donate? Because we always want to be mission first, and we know that stories are probably the easiest, fastest, and most impactful ways to people's heart. I'm going to go through these questions and share my answers to Erie's answers, just so you can get a sense of kind of the specifics. So our measurable fundraising goals. And fundraising, you're lucky you always have a goal in the sense of they tell you the board approves and tells you how much money you have to raise. So, okay, we've got $2 million. That's how much we have to raise. But then we also have other goals. These goals we call key performance indicators. And these are goals that we use to track the efficacy of our campaigns and our relationships. So we want a donor retention rate of 55%, which is if a donor donated last fiscal year, 55% of them at least are donating this fiscal year. And this is 55%. Our goal is at, I think, a bit higher than industry standard. I think industry standard, like 40 something percent of your donors give year over year. I think a lot of this is, as I mentioned, event giving is very variable depending on if people attend your event. So really want to build up that base of loyal donors who are giving year over year who you can depend on. Major donor growth. So we would like to increase our $1,000 level donors by 15%. This includes finding new donors who are new to the organization who would give 1,000 plus, but also cultivating donors who may give under that level but have capacity to give more. How we identify that, there are tools in our donor database that can allow us to know someone's wealth capacity. And also some of it is just word of mouth, a little bit of prospect research, seeing what other organizations they donate to and seeing how much they donate to other organizations and is it comparable to ours and do they have the capacity for more. And then our other goal is personalized engagement. So we need to all of us on our individual giving team, we all have portfolios of donors that we are responsible for managing that relationship. And we have to complete at least one high value interaction with 75 donors. So this might mean talking to them on the phone, having a coffee meeting with them, then getting them to come to a tour, something where you're getting to know the donor, you're getting to talk to them one-on-one on a personal level and making those connections. And then also completing one personalized touch point with every donor in our portfolio. So that means sending a personalized email, maybe a call, but it's to voicemail. Nobody picks up their phone anymore, so stuff like that. Things where you're making a personal effort to reach out and you may not speak directly to them, but hopefully it's getting to them and they will notice the energy and effort you put into it. Yeah, any questions about our performance indicators?
I was curious, looking at Erie versus the other organizations you worked for. What are like the different challenges you have in interacting with donors, or is there like a distinct difference in the type of people you're reaching, or is it kind of similar?
That's a good question. I think every organization I've worked for has been different. Has been a little bit different in the donors. At the museum I worked for, we had a large membership program because, you spend $100 a year, you get to go to the museum whenever you want type thing, right? That's a typical membership, but that's an easy in to understand that these people might come a lot and there might be an opportunity for them to give above and beyond membership. So there was kind of that anchor of our members. And also we had a very robust volunteer base of retired folks who ran programs, did this, did that. And it was really nice to have that volunteer base. They were so committed and loved the museum. At Shriver, the policy advocacy, I actually think that was the hardest one to fundraise for because in policy advocacy, it's incredibly important work, but you are not directly community facing because you're working with a lot of politicians. So it's harder to share your impact story because um, you can get a bill passed and then you can say like this impacts like millions of people and that's incredible, but sometimes people really want one specific story and that was a bit harder to get. And there was no membership. There's not really volunteers because it's hard to volunteer for that organization. And we were a small shop, so I actually found that a bit difficult. So it was really people who were very committed to um, our mission and understood policy work and understood like equity work. And pre-2020, there was less of an understanding of that work. So I found that difficult. And then uh, at Erie, we don't because we're in healthcare, we don't have that many volunteers who can work directly in our health centers, as that would not be appropriate. We need, licensed individuals providing care, so that's tough. We don't have as many opportunities for volunteers to kind of get in and dig in on our mission. Um, the best asset we have at Erie is we have like a hugely engaged staff that will fundraise for us or help be partners in fundraising. So there are a lot of providers who really feel compelled to give back. They went into community health centers because they really care. So they want to connect their networks. So that's been the biggest asset at Erie. Um, yeah. Every organization's a little bit different. So it's really interesting. I know you said you did an internship at an organization. Did you have an example of like a type of donor that you worked with there that were there volunteers, members? Like, what did you find?
Yeah, I worked, like I said, in a development office at a nonprofit, and
Okay.
they did a number of things. Um, and I wasn't like directly in fundraising specifically, um, but I did do like some donor relations type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that was more, I don't know how to like categorize the types of donors I worked with. Um, but that was mostly people who like were pretty committed to giving to the organization. And so like calling them and that was when right before one of their big events. And so a lot of calling donors and like, hey, will we see you at this event this year? Yada da da
Yeah.
da.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah.
So loyal donors, it sounds like people who would come year over year and were invested in the
Yeah.
org. Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. This is a good gateway into the next question, which is who are our donors? So supporters of accessible healthcare, our board members networks, staff networks, residents of the neighborhoods, towns with Erie sites. We have 13 sites, so the closer people are to the mission, literally, the more likely to give. And then we also have some Chicago area-based corporations who will give corporate funds. So right below our typical donor profile, local, have a connection to someone who works or volunteers with Erie, and believes that healthcare is a human right. And then how do we tell Erie's story to inspire people to donate? That's a big part of my job. And we do that by patient stories and testimonials, staff stories and testimonials, impact numbers. So having the actual data of how many people did we serve, how many patients, how many, we have a whole, we have a whole platform that has like all this data about how many patients we've served, and breaks it down a little bit more by site, by demographic, etc. And then, of course, these are all guided by our brand and our ethical storytelling practices, because I believe that if you're a patient or staff and you're willing to share your story, you really want to make sure that you feel comfortable doing that and you're sharing what you want to share and you know exactly what you're sharing for. We weave Erie's story into our donor solicitations, our donor events, social media, our donor newsletter that I write 6 times a year, our annual report, one-on-one conversations. You really can't tell your story enough. Repetition is key. Not everyone's going to read everything you do. So if it's important to keep sharing your Erie story and sharing our impact, and hopefully it will sink in for folks. Any questions before I move to this next slide? Sorry. Okay. I want to give a couple examples about how I go about planning our annual campaign. So I am going to share examples from our last fiscal year, which is July 2024 to June 2025. Allegedly, if I can make this work. Not going to spend too much time on this, but this is just an example of a document that my team created at the beginning of the year of like what activity we're doing, what's the date, who's the lead, who's the audience donor segment. And you'll be surprised when you start, if you do go to work in fundraising, how quickly the calendar populates, and there's so many opportunities. It's just a matter of deciding what's the most impactful and what's going to what you have capacity for. How we kind of approach it is we calendar our need to do's first, and then we fill in from there what we have capacity for and what we want to achieve based on our KPIs. So for our annual campaign, we always do participate in Giving Tuesday and year-end fundraising, because that raises around $500,000 for an organization. So it's a huge undertaking. And then we always do a spring appeal for lapsed donors. So it's kind of a last chance. If we see donors who haven't given yet in this year, but they gave last year, we send them another appeal. Hey, how you doing? We want to make sure that they renew their support for this fiscal year. Our annual events. So I mentioned our signature fundraising event, which always happens in the spring, and then either May or June. And then we also always participate in the AIDS Run Walk, because we have a program dedicated to helping patients with HIV, living with HIV and AIDS. So we always do that. We know that that's on the calendar. Stewardship activities, thanking is as important as asking for money. So we run a donor newsletter, like I mentioned, stewardship mailers, annual report, which I have a slide on after, and then also gift acknowledgement and thanking as gifts arrive is probably the most important stewardship activity. You really want to give people immediate recognition that you received their gift and that you're appreciative. And I do that for every level of donors. That's not commonplace at every organization, but if a donor gives $10, I thank them immediately. I send them an email and thank them, because meaningful gifts matter, and everyone gives at their own level of what they're able to give, and that's very impactful. So Sometimes also it can surprise you. We received a $25 donation, and I immediately thanked the donor and I said, "Oh, how'd you hear about us?" I didn't know his name. He wasn't in our system. He's like, "Oh, I love Erie." And I said, I asked again, "How did you give about us?" He was elusive, but he didn't answer my question, but he gave he gave $1,000 gift. And we didn't know he had capacity. We didn't know him, so that was incredible. And then we thanked him, and then he gave another $1,000 gift. And this was in the context of like 2 months, which is um kind of unheard of, but that just goes to show you should thank everyone no matter what for but also sometimes you can thank people and then they have higher capacity and then they're very grateful and they give you more money. um and Also, a big part of our role is managing our boards. So leading monthly meetings with the boards, providing one-on-one fundraising support for our boards so that they feel comfortable going out to the world, asking their friends and networks to support us. And then our associate board also will like run fundraising events aimed at their networks or kind of a younger crowd. So that's quite fun. And we always leave space for the unexpected. So small event fundraisers, corporate giving comes up, and that sometimes can be more random. And then patient needs resources fundraisers because we are adaptable based on what's going on. Do our patients need specific items? For example, I run a baby essentials fundraiser where I raise money specifically for Erie staff to be able to provide diapers, strollers, baby essentials to growing families. This was a lot. Any questions? Okay, cool. How I approach building my annual giving campaign is solidifying a fundraising theme, as I feel that it is helpful to have a theme that you can weave through your different activities of the year. Kevin knows this because I'm always asking him for his opinions on the themes, and he always has great ideas. For example, here's a few themes that we've had in some years. In fiscal year 23, advancing the heart and science of healthcare. So that was pulling at heartstrings, but also talking about how we are backed by data and science and proven methods of supporting patients. Fiscal year 24, we talked about health as a team effort. And that was talking about how our robust care teams, which include the patient, create really holistic care. And then fiscal year 25, we decided on Faces of a Healthy Community. And I'm going to walk through how we weave that theme through some of the activities we do in the year. So Faces of a Healthy Community, really focusing on what makes our patients unique and uplifting their motivations for staying healthy. Really want to put the focus on our patients and some in fundraising, sometimes it's a fine balance of not being too donor centric, being donor centric enough, but not being too donor centric, and that's a fine line that we kind of play with. But for example, this is how we weaved our theme into Giving Tuesday. So we do a big fundraising on Giving Tuesday every year, which is a global day of giving the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. It's a really saturated market, so not all nonprofits are successful, but for some reason, Erie's been able to break through because we have about 40 volunteer fundraisers who raise funds through peer-to-peer pages. So if you've ever kind of been asked to like create a fundraising page and share it out with your networks on social media, that's what peer-to-peer is. So on Giving Tuesday alone last year, we raised $100,000 via our volunteer and also additional communications related to social media, email, and personal outreach. And I had to throw Kevin on here because he's your professor, but we had some patients, board members, staff members share what being healthy allows them to do. And then we shared these, it's hard to read on here, I apologize. I particularly love our patient board member who he's a rocker, and he's like, being healthy allows me to still get funky on stage at 73 years. So very cute. So we shared all this on social media. It was very successful campaign, and there's a lot I could say about Giving Tuesday and year-end fundraising, but I'm just gonna try to get through the next couple slides because I know we're almost out of time, and then if we have questions, I will answer them. And then the next way that we kind of wove in this theme was through our annual report. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with annual reports. They are basically, it's not required, but it's very, very beneficial to create an impact report that shows your impact for the year and also lists out all your donors from the past year. It's a lot of work, and this is a huge collaboration between the fundraising and marketing team, as well as key staff stakeholders. Last year, we to kind of go along with this theme, Faces of a Healthy Community, we went to multiple different sites and took photos of patients, and also we went more in depth into 4 patient stories. So you can see here's some of the great photos we took. It was so fun to do these photo shoots. This is like one of my favorite parts of my job is kind of doing this. And then if you want to read the annual report, because I think it's really good, and you can see an example of this kind of concept, you can scan here. This is a huge stewardship tool. We send out personal notes to our donors along with these reports to say thank you so much for your support. Like, please continue to be part of our donor family. And then we also wove this theme into our signature fundraising event, which is called Iridescence. Last year it was in June, where we raised $350,000 via sponsorships, ticket sales, donations, silent auction, and game tickets. I just have some photos from the event because the storytelling was mostly verbal, through speeches, etc. But it's always a super fun time and another opportunity, sometimes a challenge, because people are having so much fun at the event, they may not want to take time to listen very closely, but it's an opportunity to share more about what we do and really highlight our theme and our mission. So that's 3 major activities for my individual giving team, and ways that we big ways that we fundraise and acknowledge donors. Any questions? Okay.
I'm sure there are some questions. Y'all can ask questions about background, goals, paths, anything. This is your time.
I have a question kind of just about like how you started in your career, because I know that you said that you got your undergrad in history and then you went to grad school for history and museums, right?
Yep.
So what was like your very first role at the Maritime History Museum, or if it was before that?
I think my first role at the museum was annual fund coordinator. So I started at the coordinator level, but I was always invested in the annual fund individual giving. I did end up, we had a very small development team of 3 people total. So I ended up managing the membership program as well, and the database and all that. A lot of opportunity. I don't have a lot of grants experience, so that's something I can't speak as much to, but yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I think when I joined Shriver, my title was development associate. which is kind of the next level, but I was doing very similar work, like hands-on creating content and reaching out to donors. And then my title at Erie started at annual giving manager. So I've always stayed in this very specific lane. But I don't know if that's common. I think a lot of fundraising professionals kind of dabble in different, uh, maybe they do some grants, maybe they do some annual giving, some events. It just so happened I just really enjoy this work. I find it very fulfilling and I find it very fun and creative.
I actually had a question. So I know you said, sorry about the noise. I know you said that you don't have that much interaction with the grant writing
Mhm.
team, but from your whole history, do you know of any people who have transitioned from grant writing to more singular person-to-person fundraising? Because I've done a little bit of grant writing in my own history, and I'd be interested to know what the transition looks like.
Yeah. I know a ton of people. It's pretty common to dabble in multiple different types of fundraising. I think multiple of my bosses and colleagues had at one time worked in grants and then on individual giving or the opposite. I think if you like it's a bit of like a personality litmus. Like if you just don't want to be bothered and you want to like write grants, you want to have a big impact on an organization, but you want to do more kind of solo work, I think grants are a great opportunity. You still partner with programmatic staff, etc., but there's less uh need to like it's more desk centric. I think individual giving there's much more opportunity to kind of be out at events one-on-one. If you like chatting people up, I think individual giving is more of a maybe more of an interesting career path. So
Sure.
and having both of those experiences is like extremely valuable to your career wherever you may go. I always tell people if you do some fundraising but you decide that's not your life path, you're going to use those fundraising skills for the rest of your life. Everybody is thrilled. Every employer is thrilled that you have raised money. Um, it is it is definitely a good skill to have. Are you interested? Do you have an interest in one or the other? Or you just kind of want to dabble, or do you have an idea of what you might want to do?
You know, I really I got good at writing grants. I've done it a couple summers in a row for a couple different organizations, and you kind of figure out a formula,
Yep,
especially with the federal stuff.
yep.
And then over the summer and last year, I interned as kind of a broad strokes caseworker at the YMCA, where I kind of did like mini grants with each person every day. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
I need to apply for Social Security. I need
Mm-hmm.
to figure out. And so I found those skills really helpful to build. But the social relationship development part of it, especially learning in this class, has been really interesting to me. So, like, I
Yeah,
always see grant writing as something that, like, it's always so in demand.
it it really is.
Yeah,
And depending on what size of organization you work at, if you work in a small fundraising shop, one, two people, you're probably going to be doing everything. So you're
sure.
probably going to be doing events, grants, individual giving, it, there are definitely career paths where you can have more of a variety of types of fundraising that you do.
Okay, that's great feedback. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
So how often do you like explicitly ask donors for money?
I myself in my current role, probably less than my teammates because I'm building our campaigns and sending like direct mail and email pieces. So I probably ask people directly for money few times a year. Like year end will be a year where I'm like, will you renew your support? Stuff like that. My colleagues, especially higher level fundraising, you're probably asking every week. You're trying to get meetings on the calendar, trying to have those one-on-ones and making some asks as appropriate. Obviously, a lot of fundraising is relationship building, so you're not going to ask someone every time you see them. I know you know that. Fundraising, I like metaphorically think it's a lot like dating. It's a lot of work. You have to put in a lot of touch points, like you don't know what the other person's thinking, but you have to be direct and they might reject you. And that is just, you just have to be okay with it. Are you interested in on individual giving in terms of like asking one-on-one for gifts?
Um, I don't know. That's kind of, I think it sounds really fun to do like the relationship building, but that's like the actual asking for things is kind of the part that like stresses me out. So,
I'm not gonna
yeah.
lie. It I think it can be stressful too, which is why I kind of love my role because I get to do a lot of creative things as well. So there are definitely ways that you can be more or less involved, especially if you're in events. I think it's a lot easier to kind of ask for a specific purpose. So if you're like asking for a sponsorship for an event, you have a lot of benefits that you can say, hey, you get these tickets, you're here. So there's I think different levels of comfortability, and also it's kind of just like building up your muscle of feeling comfortable asking for things. It can be really uncomfortable, especially starting out and there's like an age difference. I feel that there's a kind of it's something that like you get through, but it is weird to navigate. Sometimes there's maybe, yeah, there's levels. I know
One
that,
more. Oh,
oh yeah, please.
okay, one more question from me. But I know a number of us in here are seniors.
Hmm.
And do you have any like tips for like post-grad like job search? Not necessarily specifically for fundraising, because I at least don't particularly want to go into fundraising. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, or even like just for like entry level job search, kind of like advice or things you found particularly helpful or difficult or yeah.
Yeah. Um, the this is kind of a, this answer is annoying, but who you who you know is like super important in not in terms of like, oh, I don't know these people, but just if you I don't know external from fundraising, but there's like a young professionals in Chicago or like any city. There are those types of jobs at your college. Like Kevin knows a million people. You could probably email him or email me. And say, hey, do you know of any jobs? So using those personal networks, I think, is always important. I got my first job out of grad school because an alum of my program was looking. She worked at the museum and she posted on our alumni email list, and so I applied. Um, it didn't get me the job, but it definitely like made my name stand out because I knew her. Or I didn't know her, but she knew my grads program. Also, but this is to say, I have also gotten jobs from idealists by looking on websites and just cold applying and not knowing anyone. And uh, I want to acknowledge that the job market is difficult right now, so I don't know if that is as successful as a technique as it was when I was doing that. But I don't know. Kevin, do you have an answer to this? Because for me, it's a lot of like you maybe reaching out to others in the profession that may know may know of jobs.
Yeah, I think I've chatted with this group before also about volunteering, getting on
Oh,
boards. I
yeah.
think we just had that conversation. Volunteering with organizations because you're present and in front of the people that you'd likely call. They don't know you. Folks like helping people that they know. And so you got to spend some time with folks in the spaces. Volunteering is helpful. Um, if you can get on a board that either doesn't have or has a reasonable give-get policy, which we talked about last Tuesday. I think that that's helpful, but you got to get some face time with people and kind of pay into the social tax before looking for opportunities. But that doesn't mean you don't shoot your shot.
Yeah, you can always shoot. Also, something that I'm always impressed with when I'm interviewing is if people say, "Oh, or if people have," and again, this is for fundraising and this is not true for everyone, but if someone's like, "Oh, I've done a volunteer thing, or if I've donated like $20 before, or whatever, wherever you're, if you're that monthly donor, if you're like, I'm a monthly donor, that's gonna kind of stand you out because it shows that you've interacted with the organization. I think organizations love to know that you've interacted with them in some way, even if you just follow them on social media and you're like, oh, I've reposted something you've shared. If there's like any way you can stand out and show that you know, you might not always know them. I haven't known every no disrespect to Erie. I didn't know Erie. So it's possible to get a job without knowing the organization. But it sometimes is
I didn't
if you
know her
don't
either.
if you don't know people specifically, if you don't know any individuals, you can kind of finesse and say, but I've interacted with you guys. I love you guys. I'm trying to think of other sneaky ways. Okay, Kevin, you're a big LinkedIn influencer, as they say. I hate LinkedIn, but I use it begrudgingly. I keep being told that it's like a huge, great tool. So maybe just commenting on some people's stuff looks awesome. I'd love to do
Yeah,
that. Whatever.
that helps. That helps, but I think that it is interesting when you post a lot of your own content, even if you're just resharing what someone posted. You're showing your interest and expertise in a particular field, and folks start to see that. It takes time, but
Yeah.
folks start to see it, and they're able to say, "Oh, Maddie is really, really involved in the nonprofit space. She posts a lot. She's volunteering a lot. Make sure you take those pictures." Like, another class that I teach, like personal branding, you are the product. So people want to see what you do and what's your
Yeah.
expertise. And so you have to position yourself on a regular, this is my expertise, this is what I do. And then by then people can see that you add value. You can add value into an organization, but it takes time. But folks don't want to do that work though. They don't want to do the work.
Yeah. Something else I just thought of, this is maybe more for fundraising, but fundraisers are a very specific type of people where they love initiative because every day we're reaching out to people and people might not want to talk to us, but we're, reaching out, making asks, doing stuff. We freaking love it if when young people like message us and are like, "Oh, can I know more about your work?" Like if you just find a person that you think has a cool career and or at an organization that you'd like to know, if you like message them on LinkedIn and be like, "I'm graduating. Your job looks really interesting. Do you want to meet for coffee?" It's like they're gonna say yes. They unless they're like really busy for some reason, they're gonna say yes. Like I don't I think
Folks like
uh,
helping. They like
people
helping.
like helping.
And, like Carly said, just reach out, but be clear what you need. Hey, I'm a senior graduating and I want to, my background is in, nonprofit management. I want to start my career in the nonprofit field doing this, and I want to talk to you for this reason. Can we can we meet up for coffee, or can we meet over Zoom for 30 minutes? I just want to talk through a few things like you've thought about it, you have a plan, you need them for this specific reason. They see where they fit into the conversation. They're more likely to take that call versus I just want to pick your brain. We hate that because it's like, for what? We can talk for 6 hours. What do you want? And then I might say, you know what? Carly might be, I'm not the best person, but my colleague Carly is the
Mhm.
best person for you to speak to. Let me reach out to her, or I may reach out to Carly before I get back to you to say, I'm not the best, or I talk to Carly. Would you like to speak to Carly? Carly's the better person because you told me up front what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you guys.
It's true.
Mm-hmm.
Feel free to reach out to me. I put my info in the chat. I'm happy to talk about anything, in any more depth or strategize ways to reach out to people, etc. That's my whole job is strategizing ways to reach out to people. So, like to do that for any reason. And also, like Kevin said, have kind of have an agenda, but the energy that is being brought in this meeting is like the exact kind of energy that I would resonate with if someone wanted to have like talk with me for an informational interview, just like asking really thoughtful questions, maybe come prepared with some questions. I think just shows initiative. Initiative is like the buzzword of starting out your career. It's like horrible. Why do it? But it's good. You gotta play the game, kind of. So
You do. You do.
in any field, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well, this was a great discussion. Lots of good practical information that I think the class can use, and you all asked some very good questions. That's why I do this. I put these things together so you all can talk to other people, ask these questions, because it's hard out in the real world. Who do you talk to? Where are you going to have these opportunities to ask these questions? And so, I appreciate you all, being here. I say it every week, 8 o'clock is early. But I want to make sure that you all get as much out of this as possible, and having these speakers give up their time definitely is something that I think is hugely beneficial for you all. But more importantly, you all asking the right questions to figure this all out. And so between our past three speakers, you all can start to draw some averages and see some directions and possible paths for your career. And I think Carly shared her information in the chat. I don't know if you saw it, Carly, but I shared one of your personal thank you messages you sent me like 2 or 3 years ago. I forgot how
let
many
me
years
read
ago
and
it
see if
was.
it's any good. Oh yeah, that it's all right. I could do better.
But it stood out to me because you sent it to my personal email and not at work through Teams, and
yeah,
I still have it. So so
it made an
there's
impact.
some
Clearly,
practice. We see the application there. So I will let you all head out. Please feel free to reach out to Carly. My career advice, I can teach the whole course on all of this, but when someone shares their contact information, that means they want you to use it. So please feel free to reach out to Carly, ask questions, or see if she can make some connections on her team or other people you may want to talk to or something like that. So
Thank you so
anything
much.
before we leave? Any final words, Carly?
thanks for having me, all.
Thank you.
And you all can crawl back in your beds until your next class, and I will see you all on Tuesday. We have another guest speaker, and we'll keep it moving.
All right. Thank you, Carly.
Thanks.
Thank you.